Marhaba. You are listening to Real Voices with Miss Alissar. That's me. I am Alissar Nasser, and today we will be talking about Gen Z. My guest today is the brilliant Mansoor Sharaf, an alumnus of Al-Mawakib Al-Barsha, class of 2017. Mansoor is an associate at Strategy and I am excited to have him join me today to share his experience. Let's get started. All right. Marhaba, Mansoor.
Ya hello, sahla.
Look, when I introduced who you are, I used the word brilliant. And I want to tell everyone why I chose the word brilliant for you. Because while everyone may think I'm referring to your mind, I'm actually referring to your heart. I think I've met many, and I know many alumni, but you, when you walk into a room, you radiate with such positivity and nice, down-to-earth energy. It's contagious, and I love it, and that's why you have something brilliant about all of you, not just your mind.
Thank you. I really don't have anything to...
If people were with me in the studio, they would have seen your face right now and known exactly what I meant, because that smile of yours has become famous. And I love it, and don't ever let anyone dampen your spirit.
That made my day, my week, baby. Thank you very much. That's very touching. Didn't expect Friday morning would be this emotional, but thank you very much.
Habibi inta. All right, so we're here to talk about Gen Z. Maybe we should start by defining what Gen Z is. And these are the human beings born between 1997 and 2012. So you qualify. And practically most of our students in grades 9 to 12 qualify, maybe a little bit more. Statistically speaking, your generation, Generation Z right now, makes up around 27% of the global population. You are the largest generation in the world. That's very significant, isn't it?
That's a big number. I never
It surprised you, huh?
27%.
Yep. Many may fret that this is the number. As far as I'm concerned, I think we are blessed that Generation Z is the majority, because I believe in your generation. So I want to ask you, before we get into some factors or issues that dominate around Gen Z, how you feel being part of this generation. What do you think are the greatest things you have to battle, the negativity or the pushback you get from other generations for being Generation Z?
There is always this joke that goes, oh, these are born after 1997, they're Gen Z. But I think what's special about being part of this generation is that the previous generation lived a complete different era in terms of technology, advancement, all the things related. So my dad's life compared to our life is quite unique and different. I think each era had its own challenges, but I believe this generation is living a tougher challenge because the planet has evolved. We have the innovations, we have the technology, we have everything. So everything has been discovered.
Okay.
But we need to build, and we need to find this next stage or next phase that's gonna make a difference.
But do you feel then other generations are coming in the way? Like I feel sometimes, as I am Gen X. I'm not going to tell you what that means. Go research it, but it's old. Okay, so I do hear the negativity sometimes, and I don't like it. So I make it a point in most of my speeches to say, you know, I am proud that my grandchildren are in your hands. I think this is the generation that will make a difference. but I do hear the negativity. So I want to know how much of the negativity you hear from other generations. Yani, oof, all you do is, play with your phones and your mobiles. Oh, you are such a spoiled generation. These sentences I hear and I reject. You, as someone who's on the receiving end of a comment like that, how do you respond? What do you say to people who are, negative that way?
I think it comes a lot, especially when you see the younger even generation, because us born from 2000 to 2003, we got a bit of a taste of how life was without phones, without that part. Back in the days, we just had PSPs and PlayStation 2. That was...
and Blackberries.
So Blackberry was the thing at the time. But also looking at that, looking at the younger generation today, you'd see that they do not know how to respond when it comes to such negative feedback, because maybe they have not explored the other side of not, for example, being part of using the phone or using the technology. But I think the way to receive the negative feedback is giving back a positive attitude in terms of what you use on that phone. You do not know what is your son or daughter doing on that phone. He might be reading a book. He might be listening to a podcast. He might be doing something useful.
So your advice is, before you shell out that negative comment, step back and think about the fact that they may be doing something positive.
Definitely.
But what do you say to the younger generation? What should they say if they hear a negative comment?
My advice to the younger generation is, or something I do usually, is whenever I hear a negative feedback, I don't like to react, but I like to accept. And I accept it with a smile. And that's something my mom always
That
used
famous Mansoor smile. Okay.
So my mom would give me some negative feedback. And I learned throughout my time, 70 years, through my humble time, is that you should accept and then act. Because if you act, you're going to prove to the other person that gave you that negative feedback that you're doing something to make a difference.
That's perfect. So you said it perfectly, which is, for me, you're going to hear a lot, whether it's about your usage of electronics or whether it's about something else. Negativity will come in different forms. What we need the kids to understand, and parents to hear also, and adults to hear also, is receive these comments. And the best way to fight them is to prove them wrong by action instead of by reaction. All right. So, do you remember a time when someone did say something negative to you, and can you share a story and how you dealt with it? You don't have to name names, but what did someone say that puts down your generation, and how did you deal with it?
From a generation perspective, I think one story that's quite interesting. So one of the older generations looked at us, and we were a group of young guys, and he was like, "You guys are living your lives. You're not doing anything. You get everything in a golden spoon."
Yeah.
And you're living life the best way it is, and you don't know how we used to live, and
you're irresponsible, and
which is all the negative feedback poor Gen Z get. And the reaction was, we were a group. One reacted and spoke back to the gentleman, and I asked him to stop, because you have to respect people's opinions.
Yep.
Whatever the case is. You might not like what the person said, but I think it's important to respect. You receive it. It might not be fully true. So you have a filter in your brain, and then you take out what you want, and then you act accordingly. You don't need to prove it to that person, but this could be a message to you that you might have to change something in life. It doesn't have to be the negative feedback you're getting, but there is an action that needs to be taken from your end.
Okay, that's nice, because I agree with you because, anytime you hear something negative from someone, if you just take it, filter it, like you said, I like the word filter it in your brain to decide what you want to take out of it and maybe let it affect the way you do things next, or filter it out and it gets thrown away. I like that. All right, I have a few things to share with you about Generation Z, which are very enlightening, thanks to my lovely research team. Stephanie, Yani. So, Gen Z are digital natives, it says. They are digital natives. They grew up with technology. They're considered the first true digital natives. It's their world. They're tech savvy. They use technology not just to learn. They use it to communicate. They use it to interact with everyone in the world. And they prefer, communication through social media and apps over traditional methods like emails or phone calls. Do you belong to this group?
I think I'm a mix of both. Sometimes when I would think of a person, I would rather take that phone and call that person to ask about him or her. But am I digitally native? I think not, based on, just like I mentioned earlier, I was born at a time where I saw a mix of both digital and non-digital.
Okay, so you're saying to me that even within Gen Z, there are two possible groups. The groups that were born a little bit later than you, may be more tech-oriented than we are. What I want to say is, to the world, is I want us to stop relating Gen Z to just tech. Because Gen Z is a lot more than technology. And something I don't like to hear all the time is how people always like to talk about the negativity of social media and tech and all of that. And I say, the more negativity you talk about it, the more you're implanting in kids' brains the negativity. Why? Whenever I get interviewed, whenever I get invited to speak in a panel, whatever, the question is always, do you think social media and technology has a negative effect on kids' learning? It's always like this. The question is always framed from that perspective. And I think we have to change this scenario. We have to change this language, change this narrative, turn it into, tell us about the positive things kids are getting out of this. And I don't hear a lot of that. So I think I want everyone to step back and stop looking at Gen Z as they're just, drowning in their technology. Do you agree?
Definitely.
All right, so let's talk about other things that Gen Z are. Get away from technology. And for your information, Gen Z are the most diverse generation in history. They have a strong desire for inclusivity. They pursue social justice. They are vocal. They are more likely to support companies and brands that align with their values, and they're vocal about their beliefs. They have found their voice and they are making it heard. They advocate for groups that are marginalized, whether it's the poor, the hungry, whatever it is, and they challenge stereotypes and cultural misunderstandings. This is something incredible about Gen Z. Do you think your generation is as such?
I think maybe I will, in this question, I would maybe take it to the UAE only as a country.
Good example. Very good example.
And we see how the diversity and inclusion has changed.
Yep.
From 1971 up until 2023. You have a drastic change.
180 degrees.
You might have had at the time a proportion of 95 to 5 from UAE nationals to non-nationals. But today it's 90% non-nationals,
expats,
10% nationals. And why is this an example to talk about? Is that because at the time in my class, back in school, talking about diversity and inclusion, we had more than 9 to 10 nationalities.
In one class.
In one class. So just thinking of a simple adjective, the cultural differences between the class itself. You have people from Lebanon, you had students from Egypt, you had
Iran,
Iran,
India.
different nationalities. And here, I think this is the uniqueness of Gen Z, because if you look back at earlier classes, there was no this diversity as much as today. The school has been there since 1979, and I'm taking the school as an example. I'm sure the graduates from 1979, the earlier generations, the diversity was not as much as, or it wasn't as diverse as today.
I want to say it's not just about having the diversity. Having the diversity is easier than accepting the diversity.
Definitely.
A lot of people talk, we have diversity. What I found in Gen Z, so if I want to compare generations, I say your generation, your Gen Z generation, is way more accepting of other cultures, other religions, other countries, than the generations before you. Even my generation was not as accepting. Okay, you had the anomalies, few people who were different, but in general, your generation, Gen Z, is accepting. They embrace other cultures. So you may have had a class with 9 different nationalities in 1975 that struggled with acceptance. However, with Gen Z after 1997, 2000, whatever, no, it's accepting. And this country embraced this concept and actually trusted its youth with it, which is very nice. You see Gen X, my generation or before, encouraging and empowering your generation to take over and make sure that happens. And that's amazing. So I'm very proud of Gen Z. The next one would be entrepreneurial spirit, the bravery, the courage. This generation has a desire to be independent, has a desire to be autonomous. They are more brave at starting their own businesses. Yeah. They're more comfortable with saying, I know how to do this. There's a little bit more emphasis on self-confidence with this generation. Do you feel it?
Definitely. And on self-confidence, I have an example from our last AMC Voices conference.
Yeah.
Salman.
Sharaf.
Salman Sharaf. I haven't discussed this with you, Salman, and you don't know about this, but I'm mentioning you in the podcast.
We have to make sure he listens. Hey, Salman, you'd better be listening to my podcasts.
And when I saw him on that day,
he's in your class, right? 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
You see the confidence in the entrepreneurial brain.
Yeah.
Self-confidence, huge self-confidence, the ideas, the implementation, the way he built what he has at that age from literally nothing.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And I think in terms of self-confidence, it's different for Gen Z. I see it as a skill that's already there, not being built.
Oh, that's an amazing sentence. I like that. So it's inherent in them. Where is it coming from? انت مثلا, you came to the AMC Voices conference. You met with some of our seniors there. What did you think of them? Their self-confidence.
Great self-confidence.
Amazing, ما هيك?
When you open the floor for questions, you might think people would hide out and just want to end the session and go home.
No.
They didn't stop raising their hands. We had to stop to move on, which shows the self-confidence, and not only in the way they act and the way they take the decisions and the way they take a step even at a young age, which is quite important.
So they're brave too.
Definitely.
I want to give Gen Z the credit. Bravo. This is amazing. But let's not take away the credit from the generation before them that is giving them the empowerment to become all of this. I cannot take away credit from the older generation, their parents, their teachers, whoever out there who is influencing their behavior, for allowing them to be self-confident without, making them feel very self-conscious instead of self-confident.
I have to agree. We cannot but thank our teachers, my parents. They were my number one supporters up until today. Everyone that had an impact on older generations, they have, let's say, they have engraved multiple skills at a young age in this generation that are being, or I'm seeing in my eyes today, super helpful. Speaking, public speaking is one of them. Sitting today and talking in a podcast, speaking my head. Never thought I would do that at a younger age.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, on behalf of the generations before you, I will say, on my generation or one after me, I'd say that part of it is we opened our eyes to the possibility of being different, of being different parents, of being different adults, of saying to ourselves, wait, what our parents did, that was great. And setting ourselves up for, I don't want to be like my parents, but I want to be a better parent than my parents. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't, everyone does the best they can. My expectation for my children is that they see how I parented them and they take it and do a better job with their kids. So it takes courage for parents and for adults to say, okay, this is not working. Let me change. And so I'm glad that more and more are changing so that Gen Z has this confidence, has this acceptance, has this nativity to digital world. And I hope this podcast encourages more adults to take that brave step.
I think adding on that, we have to thank our parents for adjusting.
Yep, adjusting is a good word. Yeah.
Adjusting because what my dad learned from his dad is different than what we have in our generation today.
Correct.
It does not apply at all.
Absolutely 100% right. I love the word adjust, but it takes courage.
Definitely.
It takes courage. Your parents were brave and they decided no matter, and they probably got negative feedback on it as well. And they had to battle their battles and you had to battle yours. The next one, I would say resilience. This generation, Gen Z, is so resilient no matter what the challenges are. And the pandemic was the ultimate proof. I'll tell you, when the pandemic hit, Anna, as a leader of Mawakib, I was more worried about the adults and the parents and the teachers and all the adults in the kids' lives than I was about the kids. I knew the kids would be okay. We are now in their world. We are their guests, right? And they were. Notwithstanding, there were some gaps in learning and we will work on them and we are working on them. But the fact is, they mastered resilience during the pandemic. And I'm so proud of your generation for that. What do you think? They are very quick to learn, very quick to pivot and adjust and be okay in whatever the situation is.
I think you described it perfectly when you said we entered their world. Because indeed, looking back at it, the younger generation was very resilient, very resilient. I would maybe an example I have is how I moved from live classes to online presentations. Now looking at it, it was quite resilient. Looking at it back at the time or thinking of how would I act, I thought it might be very tough.
But you completely adjusted and carried on.
It did not, I was in university at the time, it did not affect the grades. Definitely the university was very supportive and everyone around you was supportive, but you have a role. And I think the younger generation were doing what they always did.
They just invited everyone to join them.
Exactly. They joined their call.
Yeah, that's what it is. So I'm very, so that's, the fifth one or fourth one we've covered. So the digital natives, the diversity, inclusivity, entrepreneurial resilience, and now mental health awareness. I lived in a generation where mental health was a no-no. You don't talk about mental health. There's no such thing. You ignore it. You sweep it under the rug. Now we live in a generation that acknowledges it. They are open about it. They are okay to asking for help. This is, beautiful, in my opinion, to be able to say, I don't know how to do this. Let me ask for help. To prioritize their self-care. This is, the advocates for reducing the stigma around mental health and using their tools, the social media, the technology in their hands to promote this. to say to people, mental health exists, find the resource, see what you want to do about it. And so in my generation or the generation after, that was a no-no. It was taboo to even think about mental health. What do you say about that?
Looking at older generations, definitely a taboo. Mental health, what are you talking about? It's not a topic to discuss. But I think today it is a big topic, and I learned more and more about it through readings, and I worked on a project that included a discussion on mental health, and it was quite interesting to see the perspective of the younger generation being vocal about their mental health.
Not shying away anymore.
Definitely. But I think also here on this point, there is the support of the older generation. So
of course.
complementing each other.
Yeah.
There is an understanding from the older generation, because let's be realistic. My parents didn't know anything.
Yeah, right.
About
more access to information now.
Definitely. Today, or let's say 15, 20 years ago, if you say, I'm going to take my child to a psychologist.
No. What's wrong with you? But now?
Different. It's a different world.
Please do if they need to go.
Yes, definitely.
So, Enta, if you hear about a friend of yours who's struggling with mental health, your reaction is?
I think definitely to understand what's going on with the person, but then advice on how, based on, let's say, the bank of information you have, on how would you deal with such a situation, and advice on where to go.
But most importantly, it's not Shuhaida. It's not what's wrong with you. It is you accept it and you move forward and you support. And there's your difference between Gen Z and previous generations, which did not offer that support. So another plus for Gen Z. Another one is environmental awareness. Yani, this is a generation that's finally taking heed of what's going on the planet. Issues on environment, issues on sustainability, prioritizing eco-friendly practices. They support, if you had a choice, you'd rather support the company that is prioritizing sustainability over another company. And you use, again, your world, social media and technology, to make sure you're raising awareness and showing that you are in support of these topics. So, Inta, as Gen Z, you are conscious about this. You have information and you know it. So do you find yourself, yes, I do. It does make a difference dealing with someone who is environmentally conscious versus someone who is not?
It does.
It does.
It does. It does. It does. When you have this, when you're conscious about the surrounding or everything that's going in the world, you feel like you are more knowledgeable. It's versus, let's say, climate change, the topic. Talk to someone that has no idea about climate change.
Or refuses it.
Versus someone who knows at least some things with regards to climate change. Just as an example, it creates a difference in how you, I would say, also deal with the other person. You would try to educate, although there is denial on the other end. Try to educate. But this generation is very, very, very environmental aware. And also within Gen Z, I'll break it down. Environment in terms of also saving the electricity.
Yeah.
And it's a real life example in our household. I would leave the house of 10 times, 6 times I would not turn off the light in my room. Keep it on. And then when I'm back, my parents would tell me.
Even the simple things, yeah.
Then look at my younger siblings. Even if they leave the room to go have dinner,
they'll switch off. Awareness.
And I feel I can
you have to catch up with them.
Definitely. Definitely.
So I'll tell you what, Yani, and for me, it's sometimes I've spoken to Gen Z people who have actually decided the course of where a relationship is going based on this. Because if you're with someone who does not subscribe to environmental awareness and support, I cannot be your friend. It doesn't make sense for me. Either you're going to change your way, or does that make sense to you? Is it a deal breaker in dealing with people or with companies when you have a choice?
It makes a difference.
It does, huh?
It doesn't make a difference.
And do you find that your friends in Gen Z feel the same way? Like, is it a common practice? It is important to them now?
Even more important to younger generations.
That's amazing.
Than us, because I think we are not, let's say, the 96, 97 till 2002.
So more the 2005 to 2012.
They are more aware.
Very good. And every generation is going to become more and more aware. So
definitely.
That's pretty good. Okay. And now the coolest fact I found about Gen Z is they prefer experiences over things. So they're more likely to spend money, for example, on an experience than on a material possession. I like that. So, I'd rather do the, hike in the Alps versus, buy the brand coat or whatever it is. So this trend is driving changes actually in entertainment and hospitality, travel industries. You see them promoting more of these experiences, less of the brands. You find like brand names and like possessions became for the celebrity level of rich, and experiences became for Gen Z because that's what interests them. What do you think?
And I think this brings the advantages of social media, because what you see in social media, you see all the brands, you see the bloggers and all of that. But then you see a side of the Gen Z looking into the experience, learning more about the experience. And I think, just thinking of it right now, if you ask a Gen Z, when was the last time we did something for the first time?
It'd be yesterday.
Yes. Yes. Because you have them exploring experiences. I am not an adventurous individual, and I think I am exploring different experiences that might not be within my comfort zone, but I would...
Give us an example. هات لنشوف. What was the last thing you experienced?
I wish I didn't often... now I'm thinking of it. Let me think.
Okay, we can skip over it. Don't worry about it. But the point of it is, you are a generation that appreciates experiences and making memories that are for life than buying something and putting it away.
Definitely.
Does that make sense?
And I cherish memories.
Yeah, I know. All right. I think, Anna, for me, it's covered. We've done a good job. The rest of this, I will leave for you to say whatever you want to Gen Z. My 2 cents will be that I am a big fan of Gen Z. I am proud that they are taking over the world. I encourage them to do it slowly but surely. And I'm very, very comfortable knowing you will hopefully be in charge when my kids have their kids, when I'm a teta.
I will keep it quite short, in line with the discussion we had. And I think our generation is going to have a lot, or is having a lot of negative feedback. And I think, or my advice to our generation is, keep a smile and excel. Do what you think is right, and learn the best practices and apply. Don't think of the negatives.
So basically, show them.
Yes.
Show them.
Yes.
So, all right, Gen Z, if you're listening, we cannot wait to see what you're going to do. I am so proud of our students who are Gen Z. I am so proud of our alumni. I am so super excited you came today. Thank you for coming. I know it's Ramadan and it's difficult, but you made it, and I'm very proud of you. You have my love, you know that, and your smile will always rule. Mansoor Sharaf, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Mr. Alissar. Had a great time.
Habibi.